Hi everyone. Yes, just like my title says, I overcame crippling performance anxiety. And I call it crippling performance anxiety because it felt like I was frozen with fear when I was going through this. And I don't think it's a place I ever want to go again, and I don't think I ever will go there again because I've learned how to make amends with that demon and put it where it belongs. A lot of people suffer from anxiety, and there's so many different kinds of anxiety, but people who perform on stage oftentimes suffer from what we call stage fright, or also known as performance anxiety. And when I say performers, I mean anyone who performs. That's whether it's a musician or a dancer or a public speaker, anyone. So the question is, how do we overcome this? I'm Carolyn with Cello Discovery. I'm going to give you some really great tools that will help you conquer your performance anxiety. These really, really do work. Let me paint a picture for you. It's probably a picture that maybe you know all too well. But imagine that you're on stage and you're getting ready for a performance. And instead of thinking about that performance that you're about to give, all you can think about is getting off the stage and hiding somewhere, because your heart, it just feels like it's about to pump out of your chest. And somehow you seem to have forgotten everything that you have rehearsed for this very moment, and you're not performing the way that you have prepared. Even if you thought that you were totally prepared, that fight or flight mode is kicking in. And this is a problem that has to be resolved, or you may never gain the courage to perform in front of an audience again. And I know, because performance anxiety nearly ended my career as a cellist. But first, please know that I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist, and I haven't had any training in counseling on anxiety, but I'm simply going to tell you about this whole situation from my personal experience and how I went through it with the help of a couple books and the vast knowledge of, I should say, the knowledge and support of some of my dearest musical colleagues. And this info is really from the collective performance hive that I've been a part of for decades. So what exactly is performance anxiety? Well, performance anxiety is very much like any other type of anxiety, but it's related to performing in front of an audience. And when it's happening, it feels like it's this self-sabotage because your brain goes into this negative spin cycle, and it's just so hard to get out of it. And it does feel a bit crippling. So why is this happening? Well, anxiety happens because we're stressing about the outcome of the performance because we want the end result to be awesome and we don't want to mess up. And the bottom line is that we don't want to embarrass ourselves. And that's all we can think about during the performance because we take pride in our reputations. We really do. Whereas what we should be thinking about is focusing on the music that we're playing or the words that we're singing or saying right there at that moment. And somehow we get it in our heads that when we perform in front of people, that all that work that we put in, all those hours of rehearsing, it's gonna pay off, and we're gonna get out there and then snap, you're gonna play better than you ever have before, which, sorry to tell you, is never really gonna happen. And when all of this negative junk is swimming around in our heads, it can potentially bring on a little panic attack when you're performing. And that's what I'm referring to when I talk about performance panic. It happens to a lot of people, and you have to learn how to manage it on the spot, and you have to learn to manage it for the long haul. So when you're anxious, the body is under stress and the heart rate increases, and your heart thumping can be quite intense when you're feeling anxious. And we might find that our hands tremble. And when the hands tremble, we can't play a soft, lyrical, beautiful passage on a stringed instrument without having it sound a bit like staccato. And when we're anxious, we might sweat a bit. And sweaty hands present yet another challenge when performing on a musical instrument. Stress often has an effect on our breathing. When we're anxious, we tend to do a lot of this shallow breathing. We can't seem to remember to take that full, deep breath. And anxiety might trigger an overly active gut, and you definitely don't want that to happen when you're on stage performing. During an episode of performance anxiety, our body goes into this fight or flight mode. Your brain is sending a distress signal through your body and activating that autonomic nervous system. Your body responds by pumping adrenaline, which is also known as epinephrine, throughout the bloodstream, bringing on a number of these not so ideal physiological changes. And once the body has fired up all this stuff that we don't want it to fire up, then we hope that our sympathetic nervous system kicks in, and rather quickly. The sympathetic nervous system is the system which acts like a brake and tells our body, chill out, just calm down a little bit here, it's gonna be okay. For me personally, I had years, literally years, that I would get on stage and I would feel like I was getting sick. These were flu-like symptoms, and I would get lightheaded feeling. I would get this hollowness in my chest, and I felt like I was floating. But magically, when I would leave the stage, I would feel better. And somehow, I never made the connection that what was actually going on was performance anxiety. I thought there must be something on that stage that I was allergic to. Maybe they used some kind of a cleaner on the stage floor, or maybe there was an excess of dust in the stage curtains. I just couldn't pinpoint it. And eventually, when I would get on stage, I would start to get panic attacks or performance panic. And I could feel these attacks coming on suddenly during a performance. It's like it's all internal because you can't react when you're on stage. It's like this explosion coming from inside. It felt like something was closing in on me, and it always seemed like there was this big, thick, black cloud that was pressing down on me. And it's almost like I could see it. I could feel it on my head. I could feel it on my shoulders, and my hands would shake. And then one day during a concert, and there was probably 3,000 people in the audience, and I wasn't even a soloist, I was just in the cello section. I had to quickly move over, and I had to put my head between my knees because I knew that I needed to get that blood going through my whole body quickly. I was pretty sure that I was going to pass out. I was going to faint right there in front of everybody. And so putting my head down between my knees was the better of the two evils. If I had fainted on stage that day, I probably would have quit performing altogether. Anyway, on the way home that night in the parking lot, I was talking to one of our principal players, and I had described what had happened that night, and I had been telling him the way I'd been feeling for years. And then I asked him, I said, do you know anybody who's getting sick from something on the stage? He looked at me pretty calmly and he said, you have performance anxiety. I was like, no, I don't have anxiety. I don't have any of that. He said, you do, because that's what you're describing. He said, and I know because I have it too. I was like, you don't have performance anxiety. You play great. You have such confidence when you play. And he said, that's because I've learned to manage it. I was like, well, do you take any medication for it? And he said, nope. I have learned to train my brain. Wow, that was really a big eye-opener for me. And I'll admit that I was pretty skeptical at first. All right, now that we know what performance anxiety is and how it affects us as performers, let's talk about how to manage it. There are two different avenues when coping with the symptoms of a performance anxiety-induced panic attack. And one is short-term treatment, and that's the stuff that you use during the panic attack, right then when it's happening. And the other is more of a comprehensive, longer-term plan that you can focus on for eventual recovery. And you really need them both. I'm going to start this section by giving you a very important acronym to memorize. And I always believe that in a stressful moment, a short acronym is going to help your brain quickly organize a plan of what it's supposed to do. And the acronym that you need to memorize is RISE UP. RISE UP. I like this acronym because when I hear those two words together, the very first thing that I want to do is sit right up and look and feel confident. And that's a very important part of taking command of your brain. And if those two words alone don't do it, let's just take a minute to break down this acronym. So R. R is for recognize. You have to recognize that you're having an anxiety moment or a panic attack. It's not the floor polish. It's not a stroke. You're not dying. It's an anxiety-induced moment, and it's a temporary thing. So recognize it, R. I is for inhale, deep breathe. And I kid you not, breathing is the thing which is going to keep your body regulating properly. It's a mechanical process which brings oxygen to every cell of your body on the inhale. So this truly is the most important trick. Keep reminding yourself that deep breathing supplies oxygen to your brain. Slow, deep breaths. If you try to breathe quickly, you're going to compound the problem and probably make it a whole lot worse. So remember, I is for inhale. S is for self-speak. And what I mean by this is to speak positive stuff to yourself. Do it. Talk to your mind. Take command. You are in charge. The things I might say to myself are, you're going to be okay. This is going to pass. You're going to be okay. Just, you're sitting in this room full of a bunch of wonderful musicians making this great music. You're going to be all right. It's going to be okay. So S is for self-speak. Say positive things. Now, if you get as far as the E, then the E is for elongate, and it's about elongating your muscles. Your muscles have a tendency to tighten up when you're stressed. So consciously raise those shoulders and then elongate and drop them. Move your head from side to side. Elongate those neck muscles. That really, really helps relieve some of that tension. So E is for elongate. The rise part of the acronym might be enough for you. It usually is for me. But if you need to go a little bit further, here's the rest of the acronym. This is the up part. U is for utopia. And I've always loved this word because utopia is a beautiful, happy, positive, perfect place. And so you need to get those negative thoughts out of your head and be very present in the moment. So think about nothing else but your happy place. So wherever that is, go there. So U is for utopia. P is for play or press, and it's or both. It's especially important for string players because you want to play louder when you're pressing your feet into the ground. Your instinct is to pull way back and hide, but if you press that bow into the string and you push those feet into the ground straight down below you, and you increase that dynamic level just a notch, somehow that's going to make you feel more in control. And it will also help you get a more controlled sound. And keeping your feet consciously planted to the floor will give you additional power, which you really, really need. Even if you're playing a soft passage, you can still bring the volume up just a little bit more. It's the better of the two evils. So as a recap, it's rise up. If you can't memorize all the steps, at least remember just rise up, and you're going to be in good shape when that anxiety moment arises. Now, if you do perform fairly often, and you want to find a way to deal with this performance anxiety for the long haul, there are a few things that you can do that will make your physical body in better shape to handle the stress. So let's talk about the long-term plan or the goals for this. So the first thing to know about performing is that you always need to be very prepared. There's absolutely no substitute for being gloriously prepared. And when you really know your music or your speech or your dance, you have confidence, and feeling really confident about what you're presenting is about bringing forward your very best. And we all feel good when we bring our best. So really know your stuff. And on a related note, if you are a musician, just be really careful not to play music which is above your skill level. I had a teacher once tell me, he said, it's not what you play, it's how you play it. And no words were ever truer. It was a throwdown line for him, but it really stuck with me. And on that note, if you need a little guidance on how to practice and prepare effectively, there's a link below in the description to a blog that I wrote on effective practice strategies. And the next really important thing that you can do is to practice breathing exercises every single day. And that way, when you need to know how to do it, you've rehearsed it a zillion times, you've got it. So it helps you so much. Breathing exercises consist of taking deep, full breaths often throughout the day. So if you do that, when that moment comes, you're going to know how to breathe when you need to. The next thing is to learn your triggers. This is really important. You have to understand what it is that's causing your anxiety. For me, it was when the lights went down on the stage just before we tuned and just before the concert was going to begin. And my other trigger was when the section was playing a really difficult, really quiet soldi passage for the group. Those were my two biggest triggers, but I learned to recognize them so I wouldn't be surprised when they happened. The next important thing is to get regular exercise. This can simply be going for a good brisk walk on most days. You can get that cardio machine going because it's going to help with everything in your life. Nutrition. Now, we all know that we're supposed to follow a diet that's low in added sugar and eat regularly to avoid those glucose spikes. Diet definitely affects the gut, and the gut feels the effects of anxiety. So anxiety and the gut are tied together, and you don't want to have any gut issues on stage. Now, although this next thing is not really necessarily a long-term thing, it totally works the day of the performance. Eat a ripe banana about an hour before you're going to perform, assuming that you have no allergies to bananas. And again, make sure it's ripe because you don't want to have a green banana because it can definitely upset your stomach. But a banana is high in vitamin B and it can help calm the nervous system. It's like a natural beta blocker. And this is a regular part of my performance routine. And if possible, avoid caffeine before a performance. I know sometimes we need that to stay really alert, but it definitely can make your anxiety worse. And sometimes it has a negative effect on the gut too. And if you find that anxiety is creeping into other areas of your life, you might consider getting some counseling or other professional help. And if you find that anxiety is crippling you and you literally can't function in a lot of your activities, there's help for you out there. Please go seek professional help. And as I mentioned, I've worked really hard to overcome performance anxiety, and I know that these methods work. They will absolutely work if you do them, but you have to actually do them. Performance anxiety will not resolve itself. You have to work on it. And if you do, you'll be rewarded with an enjoyable, successful performance nearly every time. And if you know anyone who is struggling with performance anxiety, feel free to share this video with them. It might be what they need to hear. And please also feel free to share your story in the comments below. Let me know how you have dealt with performance anxiety, or let me know if you've tried something in this video and it really worked for you. I really do love hearing your stories because I learn from them too. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video, and please subscribe to my channel below so that you don't miss any upcoming videos. I don't have a regular schedule for loading videos, but I do it often enough. And remember to hit the thumbs up if you liked it. I also want to invite you to check out CELLOdiscovery.com. If you're thinking about learning the cello, or if you've already started learning the cello and you just want some additional direction, that's what Cello Discovery is all about. I wish you a whole lot of luck as you put yourself into a better mental state during your performance or your next big public speaking event. So until next time, thank you so much for watching.